Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? It's been several years since backlit screens became available for the original Game Boy Advance. The technology at the time produced good results, but screen mods for other handhelds have repeatedly raised the bar since then. So does this new kit give the GBA the image quality it deserves? This is the Funnyplaying GBA IPS kit. It's sold by Handheld Legend, who kindly sent one my way to check out. In concept, it does the same thing as the so-called 101 mod screens from years ago, but promises even better picture quality. The kit includes the screen, adapter ribbon cable, and a few other parts to complete the installation. I started, as always, by disassembling my GBA. There are 7 screws holding the back cover on. 6 of them are tri-wing with an extra Phillips screw hiding in the battery compartment. I took out the 3 screws holding the circuit board to the front panel, then carefully unlatched the screen connector so I could disconnect its ribbon cable. I dumped out the buttons and membranes to get them out of the way, then removed the original reflective LCD screen. The easiest way I've found to release the adhesive holding it in is to gently twist the front panel. After a few times, the screen should pop free. Some modifications to the console's front panel are necessary, specifically trimming down some protruding parts at the bottom and side of the screen cutout, plus a small amount of plastic next to the select button. This is simple enough to do with a pair of flush cutters, but the screen cutout also needs to be made a bit bigger on the sides and bottom. You could pull this off with the careful use of a file, but what's much easier is to pick up a pre-modded shell. Handheld Legend sent one along, and it was professionally milled with very good accuracy. It looks like the shell was made this way. The new LCD panel goes in next. It's slightly bigger than the original the GBA came with, hence the need to modify the front housing. It's also very thin, even thinner than the original screen, so care has to be taken to not flex it, otherwise it might crack. The kit comes with a pre-cut adhesive gasket to hold the display in place. I peeled off the backing tape and applied it to the screen cutout, making sure it was going in the right way since it's not quite symmetrical. I had torn out the unneeded center section of the gasket first, but in hindsight, I wish I had left it in. I found myself having to adjust the sides and top after I had placed it, but that center part would have made the gasket much easier to align, and I could have simply popped it out afterwards. I removed the protective film from the LCD to get ready to drop it into the shell. Aligning the panel is really important. It needs to go up against the upper right corner of the screen cutout. While the adhesive isn't too strong, definitely try to get the screen placed correctly the first time. Removing it might flex the display enough to damage it. If it isn't in the right place, the screen image won't look centered when the mod is finished. The kit includes a couple of acrylic spacers to keep the panel where it needs to be, but I'd consider installing them to be optional. The gasket's adhesive does a good job on its own. If you do want to put them in, one goes on the bottom and another on the left side. Due to 2 of these small bumps in the screen cutout that didn't get milled away, I found it easier to trim down the side spacer so it would fit. Too much pressure on the side of the screen could break it. Next up was the flat flex ribbon cable that connects the display to the Game Boy's circuit board. It contains a few chips that convert the video signal. It also offers backlight brightness control, and here's where you can do an optional step. A few wires are included in the kit, and they're used to connect the ribbon to the select and shoulder buttons. This is the only part of the installation that requires soldering, so if you aren't comfortable with that, you can totally skip it and the screen will still work fine. You just won't be able to change the backlight level. This flex cable is clever in that it can work with both 32 and 40 pin GBA boards. I simply folded the side of the cable I wasn't using out of the way. I placed the cable in the upper right corner of the screen cutout, then carefully connected the display at the bottom. A piece of capped-on tape is all that's necessary to prevent it from moving around. For the backlight control, I soldered one of the wires to this pad on the circuit board for the select button. I reinstalled the buttons and membranes in the front panel with some new replacements. Next, I dropped in this pre-cut piece of foam that acts as an insulator between the screen and circuit board, then got the board put back in. To keep it from moving around, I went ahead and reinstalled a couple of its screws. When connecting the ribbon cable to the circuit board, I found it helpful to hold it up with a spudger while I slid the end into the connector and locked it down. Then I could solder the shoulder button wires to the left leg of each of their respective micro switches. Almost done. Next, I reinstalled the rear housing. The replacement screen is thin enough that the board fits like it normally would, so the back sits nicely and doesn't end up with a big gap along the seam. Finally, the kit comes with a replacement glass screen cover that's the right size for the larger display area. I peeled away the center section of the protective tape, then the backer on the adhesive. I made sure the LCD was really clean, then stuck the cover into place, and the mod was complete. The results from this kit are just great. As you'd expect from an IPS panel, the image is crisp and the colors are vibrant. And while it's not super obvious, the slightly larger screen is nice too. Compared to the previous 101 mod, this IPS display is dramatically brighter and clearer. On my 101 modded GBA, I'd always noticed what looked like a little bit of interference in the image. That's completely gone with the IPS kit. I'm also happy to report that it's a pixel-perfect display. There's no interpolation beyond what the Game Boy does itself, so the image is incredibly sharp. It pulls this off using a process called pixel doubling, so while the LCD panel itself isn't the same 240 by 160 resolution as the original, it's still able to produce an image as if it was. I also didn't notice any ghosting, and the viewing angles are excellent. The backlight gets plenty bright, and since I soldered those wires, it's adjustable by holding down Select and pressing the left and right shoulder buttons. Perhaps the most compelling part of this kit is its value. At the time this video was published, the display kit sells for $60 US. I'd highly recommend picking up a pre-modded shell along with it, which is a reasonable $15. And altogether, that's a decent deal considering how quick and easy it was to get assembled, along with the excellent image quality it produces. A comment that frequently pops up in the videos I've done about the original GBA is that one should just use an AGS 101 instead, since they came with a backlit screen from the factory. Well, that's certainly an option, but some people just find the AGB model more comfortable to hold, prefer being able to use AA batteries, or like having a headphone jack built in. Whatever the reason, there's clearly some fans of this model, and the fact this kit even exists confirms that. And you know what? I kinda think the IPS screen in this kit looks better than an AGS 101 anyway. So if you like the original Game Boy Advance for its form factor or ergonomics, this kit is a great way to dramatically improve your gaming experience. And even if you've already done the 101 mod, the improvements this one offers is big enough to be worth seriously considering an upgrade. I owe a big thank you to Handheld Legend for supplying a kit for me to check out. If you're interested, as always, I'll include links in the description. If you like the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at thisdoesnotcomp, and as always, thanks for watching.